You know when you listen to an economic debate and it feels like the two sides are speaking completely different languages? One person is all about the data, the numbers, the facts, and the other person is all about what's fair, what's right. Well, it turns out they're both talking about economics, but they're coming from two totally different worlds. So let's dive in and really unpack this crucial difference between positive and normative economics.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that core difference, fact versus opinion. Then we'll get into what positive and normative economics actually are. We'll put them side by side to compare them directly, and then we'll talk about why this whole thing actually matters in your day-to-day life. Okay, let's get right to the heart of it all. Fact versus opinion. In economics, this distinction is, well, it's everything. You see, not all statements that sound economic are created equal. So how on earth do we tell them apart?
Just look at these two statements. On the left, we've got a factual claim. India's GDP growth rate is 7%. Now, this is either true or it's false. We can check it. But then on the right, you have a policy proposal. The government should reduce income inequality. That's not a fact, is it? It's a goal, an ideal. They're both about the economy for sure, but they exist in completely different universes. Let's figure out how to categorize them.
First up, let's put on our detective hats. We're stepping into the world of the economic detective. And the job here is pretty simple. Find the facts, follow the evidence, and just describe the economic world exactly as it is. No judgments allowed. And this brings us to the formal definition. Positive economics is all about objective facts and hard data. It's the part of economics that just deals with what is. It doesn't pass judgment, it simply describes and explains what's happening based on the evidence. The detective's toolkit is pretty straightforward. Positive statements are objective. They're factual. They have to be based on real-world data, and they've got to be free from any personal opinions or feelings. It is all about the evidence, pure and simple.
Here's a perfect example. A rise in tax on cigarettes will reduce consumption. Now, notice this isn't a statement about whether smoking is good or bad, or if the tax is fair. It's just a claim about a cause and effect relationship. And here's the key test for a detective. We can actually verify this. We can go out, collect sales data before and after a tax hike, and see what happened. We can prove the statement either right or wrong. And that is the hallmark of positive economics.
Okay, time to switch gears. If positive economics is about being a detective, then normative economics is where we meet the economic architect. Now, their job isn't to describe the world as it is, but to dream up a blueprint for how it should be. And the formal definition here makes this crystal clear. Normative economics is all about value-based statements, what the economy should be like. It's full of opinions and judgments, and it focuses on what ought to be instead of what is. At their very core, these statements are subjective. They're built on personal opinions, on beliefs, on values. And they almost always suggest we do something. They're prescriptive. They're not a photograph of how things are today. They're a blueprint for a tomorrow that somebody wants to build. Here's a classic example you hear all the time. Taxes on the rich should be higher. See that word, should? That is a giant clue that you are in the normative world. This statement isn't describing a fact. It's pushing for a policy based on a value judgment about fairness or equality.
And unlike the detective's claim, you can't prove this one right or wrong with data alone. I mean, whether you agree or disagree depends entirely on your personal viewpoints, on your ethical framework. There's just no scientific test for the word should.
Okay, so we've met our detective and our architect. Now it's time to put them right next to each other to really make this distinction stick. This is where it all clicks into place. This table lays it all out beautifully. Positive economics is about facts and reality. Normative is all about opinions and judgments. One is objective, the other is subjective. And here is the big one. Can you test it? For positive statements, yeah, absolutely. For normative ones, nope. Their purpose is different too. Positive economics explains and predicts, while normative economics is all about suggesting policies. The examples say it all, right? GDP grew 6%. That's a testable fact. GDP growth should be higher. That's a value-driven goal. So we get the difference. But why is it so important? This isn't just some dusty academic exercise. This is about handing you a brand new tool for critical thinking in the real world.
Let's make this personal. Why does being able to tell the difference between a fact and an opinion about the economy actually matter to you in your day-to-day life?
Because it gives you this simple but really powerful framework. The next time you hear an economic claim, you can run it through this mental checklist. Step 1, just listen. Step 2, ask yourself, hey, is this a testable fact? Can I prove it right or wrong? Step 3, or is this a goal based on someone's values? And the most important part is step 4, learning to consciously separate the is from the ought.
Once you can do that, you suddenly have this superpower to decode everything, from news headlines to expert commentary and especially political promises. You can see when someone is stating a fact versus when they're presenting their vision, their normative goal. It just brings so much clarity to the conversation.
So, I'll leave you with this question. The next time you find yourself thinking about the economy or talking about it, just pause for a second and ask yourself, which hat am I wearing right now? Am I the detective, trying to understand what is? Or am I the architect, trying to design what should be? Knowing the difference, well, that's everything.